Let's look ahead. Let's talk about Avengers 4. Clearly, the Captain Marvel Easter egg at the end of the movie does help kind of establish that, but so does Doctor Strange, his very telling line to Tony when he gives up the Infinity Stone, the Time Stone. He said, "This is the only way," and he had seen millions of possible futures, and there was only one where they survived. So, to me, and I would imagine to most people, those are the two big kind of pointing you in the direction of what Avengers 4 is. Are your thoughts?
I thought this was really subtle and really great, and I really enjoyed how you thought that the whole pile-on Thanos thing that they did also used the Crimson Bands of Sidorak. Doctor Strange was the MVP. I loved how they used all of his cool powers, like in the comics. When they did all those things, you thought that was what he meant. This is how we beat Thanos. I think he saw way past that and saw that the one through line that saw Thanos eventually defeated in Avengers 4 is going to be Tony Stark had to live. So that's why he gave him the Time Stone, knowing that this was all part of a larger scheme, even knowing that he himself was going to die, and that's how it had to go. So I feel like that was actually really cool, and it's almost a little subtle, so you might not have picked up on it, and I think people are gonna like discover that and be like, oh wow, this was all part of a larger plan.
Yeah, I really felt like, you know, Doctor Strange was saying, I didn't necessarily take away from it that Tony needed to live, but I think you're totally right since we've talked about it. But I thought it was, you know, Thanos needed to win and get the Time Stone and have this happen, and then we can hopefully fix it later. What I am most intrigued about, and I will say, like, I hope that there is a payoff in Avengers 4 of Doctor Strange being like, this is why it needed to go this way, to like really nail it home for the audience. Yeah. What I am most intrigued about is how, well, two things. First, how Captain Marvel will fit into this, and obviously Ant-Man and Hawkeye, because I believe what we know about Ant-Man and the Wasp is it's happening like around the same time as Infinity War. So we're talking, like, imagine if that movie ends and just like, Ant-Man disappears, and like that's sort of the tie-in to the next movies, but also like really how just Captain Marvel's powers will work. We know this movie is set in the past, like how does she get to the present? Does like that pager somehow, I don't know, like how does that pager even work at all? And like in just ultimately what powers will they be using to sort of retcon things that happen? I would imagine that there might be some timey-wiminess, to borrow some Doctor Who terms, that would allow them to go back and potentially use the Time Stone or something, some other powers to like reset.
They must get one of the stones back from off Thanos at some point. Obviously, Captain Marvel coming to Earth gets the rest of them into space. That seems pretty no-brainer. I mean, Nebula and Tony have to get off that planet somehow. Mm-hmm. And then I also, though, think that by setting up Captain Marvel as sort of she could be a device of exposition for them. She can take them to where they need to go. And, you know, depending on the Kree of it all in Captain Marvel, I mean, maybe there is another kind of thread out there that somehow is tied into this. You know, maybe it's not just all about Thanos and Avengers 4 or something. Maybe they have some unlikely allies that they have to turn to, because clearly everyone was affected by this. So the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of deal might come into play. You might see some, you know, very interesting alliances in that film.
Well, the interesting thing is we still don't know the name of Avengers 4, and Kevin Feige actually told you that like the idea behind withholding that name backfired because they were just trying to keep the focus on Infinity War, but now everyone's like, what could it mean? Yeah. But you know, we talked about, originally we had speculated like the new Avengers, but that doesn't make sense because it's the new old Avengers.
What if it's reassembled because they are literally coming back together, you know?
Yeah.
I don't mean just, I mean physically their forms coming back together.
We'll need to be formed back together. Yeah, I'm really intrigued. And also, you know, the only other two movies that we know that are coming after Avengers 4, a lot of undated ones, or unnamed but dated ones, but we do know that there's Spider-Man Homecoming 2, or whatever the Spider-Man sequel will be called, so I guess Spider-Man's coming back, but also Guardians 3, I guess the Guardians are coming back, or it's just about Rocket, which would be fine, but I wonder almost if, like, you know, say Gamora is permanently dead or something, or we even were speculating that that vision Thanos has at the end? Could baby Gamora be taking the place of like Lady Death or something
Yeah.
from the comics? Like, do the Guardians potentially need to go off and save her in some other
It could be like a
soul
Star
realm
Trek
or
3
whatever?
kind of thing where they have to
Yeah.
go and search for Spock, bring him back, or something like that. I also
I
another.
will say, I'm just happy that the future is unknown, that Marvel has withheld so much so that we really can't speculate too much about what could come next.
To get really nitty gritty and nerdy on this, though, the
We haven't been already.
Ant-Man and the Wasp will, we know that they're going to end up in the quantum realm because Michelle Pfeiffer is playing Janet Van Dyne, so they're going to go to this. So they're going to another dimension that we've already established, and we've seen Doctor Strange do other dimensions, and now time and reality can be warped. So I do think that Doctor Strange bringing up the timeline thing now opens the door to what timeline is our story actually going to end up in?
And is it a divergent one?
Yeah. In my concern with that is that they're going to kind of do what they did with the rebooted Star Trek movies, and that gets a little hairy, I think, and I don't know if they quite want to go there. I wish they would just make a choice and stick with it, but we'll see.
So you guys are convinced there's some time travel in the future?
I think so.
Time
Timey-wiminess?
Time shenanigans.
Timey-wiminess?
Yeah.
Timey-wiminess.
I have a more profane term for it, but I won't say it. Do we think the heart-shaped herb, we know that it was burned, Killmonger seemed to burn them all. However, Thanos' vision when he sees little baby Gamora and has his rosebud moment of realizing everything is lost. Could there still be some way, because the vibranium that's leaking into Wakanda soil causes the heart-shaped herb, could there be some way to get that to communicate with T'Challa? Can Shuri do it? Take it.
Depends
Become
how-
the Black Panther.
Right.
Go in there, communicate with T'Challa. He can tell her something is there a
Sort
way
of depends how dead they are currently,
Yeah.
but
I think maybe that'll be a cool plot device that Shuri and Okoye are like, okay, we have this
superhero Black Panther.
we have this special herb that can communicate with the souls of the dead. So maybe they could use that to talk to them wherever they are, if they are indeed dead, or maybe they're in another place that they'll reach with
But
going through
T'Challa
the
did
quantum
die in
realm.
Wakanda, so if they're, shouldn't he be up in the tree with his ancestors?
You would
come down,
think.
take
if
them
he's
in?
not
But-
trapped in some other soul realm
dimension.
like we've speculated.
Right. We would have to. They would also have to grow new flowers. Maybe they're already growing in between movies or something like
If
that.
they can take a soul stone out of a robot, they can. Sorry, if they can do that, they can figure out how to plant a flower, I think.
Yeah.
So that's what we thought of Avengers: Infinity War. We want to hear what you think. Let us know in the comments. Check out IGN's review of the film, as well as our breakdown of all of the Easter eggs that we could find. And as always, be sure to follow and subscribe on whatever platform you like to watch IGN.